What happens is at the end of the day, I don't have any frustration or pain that I didn't do anything for me. At the end of the day, you get the kids to bed and you're like, okay, where was I in this whole picture? Got me. I took care of me, took care of those that are important to me. I planted those seeds. So now I have the energy to focus on the kids and be there for them.
Fellas, what's going on? I hope this episode finds you well, and I hope this episode leaves you better than when it found you. Today's episode is with Cletus Coffey, and he's a former professional athlete and someone who now works with guys to help them find their way. And we talk about exactly that and really helping guys to figure out how to live with more than anything, I think a sense of purpose that fills them up. And it's a great conversation. So enough of me, y'all. Let's get into today's episode with Cletus Coffey. Cletus, welcome to the Modern Masculinity Pod. Thanks for being here, man.
Hector, dude, I'm grateful for the invitation, the opportunity to join you, man. I love that you have a passion for this and provided a platform for people to learn and grow and create community, man. Thank you.
You know, it's interesting that you say that, and I am opening myself to receive that because I think the passion was given to me. You know, passion, I'm one of the nerdy people who studied Latin in high school, and the root of passion is actually from patior, which means to basically like to suffer, right? And it is they talk about the passion of the Christ, right? Like it's his suffering through which all this stuff happens. And it is through which I have, taken this journey. And I talked about it at the beginning of the show, but for months, I said, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. And in my meditations and in all my things, it was like, this is the only thing to do. And so, if not just to shut my own voice in my head up, I started the show and, we're 100 episodes in. And so I do feel compelled to help guys who are maybe a couple of steps back behind me on the path, and so it has been a journey of purposeful suffering, though. I think this show gives it purpose. So anyways, though, take us into your world. We'll talk about some of the work that you're doing, talk about some of the cool stuff that you're doing with guys, but I'd love for you to take the guys into your world. And even, someone who's leading men and a leader of men, what sort of challenges or muck or trials or tribulations do you find yourself like still working through today?
Dude, the thing about it, Hector, is we're called to the work that works us. I obviously was never planned to go down this route, but there was a lot of work that I needed to do on me. And I started looking around and going, who else is doing this type of work? And I just couldn't find anybody to connect with, to resonate with. And, I read the books, I went to the seminars, I hired the coaches, and it was a lot of, at least at the time, just great stuff, great content, great people. It just was kind of tailored toward a particular person that wasn't me. And I was thinking, well, this is good stuff, but I cannot connect with it. I cannot relate to it. And I can't be the only one. So I just was called, like to your point, there was a voice that just kept calling me to be of service to others like me, former athlete, got married, got divorced, single father, tried relationship again. They didn't work out. Finally looked at the mirror and said, okay, I'm the common denominator here and I got to do some work on me. Now what the heck do I do? Because there's no playbook for that. So through the fire, through the pain of my own darkness, and no one's coming to save me. So I got to figure this out. And once it started to click for me, I thought, well, I could be of service to help others, to your point, people that are a couple steps behind me.
I always sort of jab our guests on the show because I come from the personal development world and where it's like the guy on stage has everything figured out. The leader, quote unquote, they've fixed all their problems. I kind of evolved thinking that was sort of the reality. And as I got to know some of these successful guys and obviously matured in my own career and life, I realized that like it's rare to find a guy who has it all figured out. And it's like, I don't know if I've met one yet. Even the best ones they're still working through something. They're sort of finding them ways into new challenges and opportunities. And so are you the guy who's got it all figured out? Is of all the boxes been checked and now you're Moses and sort of coming down from the mountain and bringing the tablets down and here's how it's done. And, or are there still some things that even in this stage of your journey that you're kind of, navigating as well?
You finally met the one that's got it all figured out.
Great. I'm glad we took us 100
Here we go,
episodes.
you're in. Damn, man. The work outworks you. And around every door that opens up, there's another one that's, oh man, I definitely don't have that figured out. Look, I come from the athletic space. So it's always about, hey, it's about the journey, not about the end result, about the process, not perfection. And it was like, yeah, yeah, okay, okay, okay. But man, I still want to win. I still want to be on the mountaintop. And latter years of life, because life has a real unique way of backhanding us and a lot of pain and suffering through it. And what I recognized was, man, that actually rang true. It really is about the process. And each door that I open up, that, okay, maybe I've hit the mountaintop and then I realize, oh man, I'm not even at base camp yet. There's just a whole nother. And the thing about that is because I keep expanding my goals. As the door opens, I thought, oh, there's a lot more I can do here, a lot more I can create. Versus what I run into a lot is, especially in men who are like, okay, cool, I got the job, I got the wife, I got the kids, I got the picket fence, like I'm cool. And it's like, that's it? You got it all figured out? In this level of, for a lot of them, mediocrity, that's it? That's it for you. Until they realize, wait, there's something more for me to do here. I'm tired of just producing, performing, providing for everybody else. Like there is actually something I want in this life: purpose, mission, fulfillment, challenge. But that comes from stepping through doors and continuing to evolve. I will always be evolving and growing, as I hope everyone else.
I was watching Lone Survivor with Mark Wahlberg. One of the moments in that movie, they get to the top and they're like, they have this goal where they needed to get to the summit, right? Because they get to the summit, they can get evacuated and get help and the helicopters and the whole thing. And they get to the what they thought was the summit, and they had a word for it, and they're like, "Fuck, it's a false summit." Like, oh shit, like. I'm sure it's a very common term for people who are in that world or survival or whatever, but like even hiking. But I was like, oh, that's such a great concept because I think that there's so many times where I hit that false summit thinking that, oh, this is going to be the place of salvation. This is going to be the place where we rest or give up or whatever it is. And it was all of a sudden when I realized I was like, oh shit, we got a whole nother mountain to climb. And I think like there's moments like that, whether it's in business or life, relationships. And it's sort of this gut check moment that I think it's sort of a make or break sort of thing. And I would hope that all guys have it in them to look at that and be like, fuck, all right, like, let's go. Cause that was what they said. It was like, there was no like, oh, let's give up here. Like, oh, we can just stop, like, oh, let's just let the enemy catch us and let's give in. It was just like, all right, like, let's dig in and let's summit this next summit. And it was just such a great reminder to have that outlook when seemingly like shits, especially, recently where things can seem to be I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but it just seems like things are harder as of late. Like it's just life has gotten harder in a lot of its instances. And so hopefully guys can sort of use that as fuel as opposed to like, it's just exhausting, I can imagine for some too.
It is exhausting, especially if we are operating from an old paradigm that doesn't work anymore. And it's generational, man. It's been passed on. This is how my father wasn't in my life, how my parent and my guardian did, and my grandfather. It's been passed down, and it's just kind of like assumed, like this is the way things are. And so, no wonder why it's hard, because we have one, the environment around us is changing, and number two, we haven't tapped into our own personal ecosystem. And man, the amount of times connect with guys and ask them like, who are you? Who are you really? Like, what is the truth about who are you? Not what you learned from how you grew up, not the bag of goods that they've, sold you. Who are you? And once the light bulb starts to flicker, then they realize, to your point, oh man, I'm just starting. I'm just beginning, because they're tapping into themselves for the very first time. Like I'm just launching on this journey. I find that powerful.
One of the sort of questions, we bring up often for guys to be able to answer and that I've mentioned a lot is who are you without talking about your family or your career,
Mhm.
without your family or your job? If you can do that, now you're sort of getting to that core of what you're talking about. And my freshman year of college, the class quote was by George Bernard Shaw. I think he's a poet, writer, great thinker. And it was something to the effect, I'm going to butcher the quote, but it was something to the effect, life is not about finding yourself, it's about creating yourself. And I heard that and I was like, oh, fuck yeah, like that sounds dope. Like put it on a shirt. We actually did have it on a shirt. I remember the shirt distinctly. It was like a red shirt. I had our graduation date on the front and had this, quote on the back. And I remember, oh, like my immature synthesis of that meant like, oh, have to go and be somebody I'm not. Like that's actually what ended up happening. Was I took that and I was like, oh, let me go and create this idea of me being this frat guy, or let me go and create this idea of me, like, let me go and try on all of these other personalities that I thought might make me cooler or get me more girls, or like whatever the outcome was, only to realize that those were just more and more masks that I was putting on. When once I got done, I was like, maybe I should find some time like to find myself. It took me 30 some odd years to actually think about, what is that question? Who am I when you take away my family and when you take away my job? Like, oh, like there is actually this person that persists underneath all of that and despite all of that. And who is that person? And maybe, I don't know, things happen the way that they should. But maybe if I, when I was 17 and got that shirt, like maybe if I would have said, maybe I am a little weird and nerdy and quirky, and like maybe I am all these sort of things that I actually am. And instead of trying to hide those and pretend like I'm someone I'm not, like what if I started to figure out who that person was a little bit sooner? That's sort of where I go. And I think that the challenge might be that a lot of guys are just so far deep into this, what you said, like the societal family programming of rut of school, job, family. Like it was only when my relationships started to fall apart that I started to think about these questions. But all I was just trying to do before was just check the boxes, and I'd gotten to that place where I would have everything but the white picket fence, because our houses don't have fences, but it was a nice house, great neighborhood, pretty spouse, kids, how like everything was like, and there was this moment of like, okay, well, what, and that was actually, the moment that things started to fall apart. So thankfully I had my answer. But I think guys don't give themselves enough time or space to actually answer those questions. And I don't know that society necessarily allows or provides that space either.
I love what you're hitting on, and I definitely want to tap into the single fatherhood at some point in this. But I want to share with you and your listeners here something that they may be able to resonate with, because this was my journey. I came from the athletic space. I was a 3-sport athlete in high school, 2-sport athlete in college. 2 weeks after my college graduation, I was on a flight to go play football in the Canadian Football League. Like, I made it. I'm gonna be a pro athlete. I dreamt about this thing my entire life. And like all athletes, generally it ends before you want it to, especially at that level, because now we're talking about business. I got cut for the first time in my life. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm so embarrassed. I got cut. It was as if the freshman in high school in me was there going, embarrassed, that I got cut. And when in fact, like, this is a business, man. Dudes get cut, the best of the best get cut and released and traded and all the time. Anyway, had a nice little 4-year run between the Canadian Football League back here in the States and the Arena Football League. I break my leg. Basically, I'm 28 years old. My career's done. Like, I'm at that age, I'm an elder in football, American football. And then began the process of, okay, I've been this thing for 80% of my life. I'm no longer it anymore. Who am I? Because I used to walk into the door and people would come to me. Hey, how's the game going? How's the team? Can I get tickets, autographs? I mean, I went back and looked at my middle school yearbook, and from teachers to my classmates, everyone, see you in the pros, save me tickets for your Nick. They were all, I was fed this for so long, that you're this thing, and now I'm no longer it. And identity crisis began to hit. What really hit there was I began to start this process of, I want to say unraveling, but recognizing that I was hiding, because I was hiding behind the Cletus the athlete. I didn't want to share with people what was really going on for me. It was all about me, the athlete. Then it rolled in. So I needed another identity to connect with. I found entrepreneurship, because it was kind of the same high, the same excitement, the same, and yet I was still hiding. And here's how I would hide. I would show up at a networking event. I started my first business. I got into the finance world. I was doing commercial lending on commercial real estate projects, started my own business. And Then I jumped into the real estate boom of kind of the early like '03, '04. Jumped into personal like mortgages on residential properties. And I needed clients so bad, man. I didn't know any entrepreneurs. I didn't know anything about business. I just knew that I needed to go that route. I would go into these networking events and I talk to people as if I was that athlete walking in, like, come talk to me. So people would network. And I was so afraid to tell them that I had no clients, that I was broke, that I had borrowed money and I was running out of it. And all I needed was partnerships, connections, clients, but I just couldn't bring it to myself to tell the truth that I was hurting. I was desperate and I needed help. So I'd show up and go, yeah, business is great. I got this cool, and I would just bullshit my way. I got this cool project going on and da da da, thinking that if I talked big, I talked cool, that they would want to do business with me. And it got to the point I would go to a networking event and I was so stuck in my own lies about where I was at. I would say my name, which it's a unique name, Cletus Coffey. And I can tell you at least a dozen times, someone would come up to me afterwards because hey, you're energetic, you're someone I want to connect with. They come up to me, Hector, and they go, okay, so what's the name of your coffee company again? I said, oh no, I'm sorry. That's my name, Cletus Coffee. What I told you was I was in this business, but it was just energetically, it was so off. I was in my own lies that just people couldn't even hear it. They couldn't even connect with it. And so I bullshitted in my marriage. I didn't feel good about it. We were not communicating well. I didn't know how to communicate. I didn't know how to ask for help. And so I just wanted to be the husband and the father that I thought everyone wanted me to be. So I kept showing up inauthentically. And to your point, the kids were cool. My marriage wasn't cool, but business wasn't cool. I was dying inside because I wasn't showing up as me, showing up saying, this is what I want. I don't want to be treated this way in a relationship. I don't want to be in this because I didn't like the business I first started anyway. I just wanted to make money. I was chasing money. And the more I showed up inauthentically, lacking vulnerability, lacking truth, the more I was distancing myself from that which I really wanted. And the whole idea that truth will set you free, I finally embodied that when I started showing up and telling the truth. I don't like this. I don't like the way you treated me. I got into another relationship that was really challenging, very toxic. I had to learn to set boundaries and say, I don't like this. This is not me. Detaching from what that person will think of me. Going into business along things that I'm aligned with, especially coming from the athletic space. They always tell you, well, why don't you go be a coach? You know your sport, go be a coach. Or they tell athletes, go get into sales, especially for some reason, insurance sales. Go get into insurance sales. Neither one of them aligned with me. And yet I did them both. I did the coaching, I sold insurance, like, and finally putting my foot down and saying, okay, taking the time to recognize who I am, not what other people, what my mother thought of me, what society thought of me, and what I should do. Like, what is it that I want to do and who am I? That was a shift for me, showing up authentically as myself.
It's been talked about on the show, and I forget who mentioned it, and maybe there's some studies, but they've essentially found that in men, and I'd imagine in most people, the two biggest wounds are abandonment and worthiness. And I'm sure that you can expand that to, to women as well. But it seems that, to your point, a lot of guys deal with this, and they deal with it in silence, or it's sort of this hidden thing where you think about, the guy who's, got all these friends and is at all the parties and all this stuff, like he's dealing with abandonment issues. And the guy who's super successful and has all these accolades, like that guy's dealing with worthiness, but underneath it, and when you get into when it's just them, or it's late at nights or even early in the mornings, whatever it is, when things quiet down, that's what really is running through their heads. I mean, for me, it was abandonment. And I've talked about it a lot. I find that if guys can look at that and they know that, oh, well, here's actually what I'm dealing with, because those wounds tend to be so deceiving, is probably the words that I would use, right? Where they'll do anything to mask it, to make it not seem like worthiness. Where if you ask the guy at a sort of surface level, do you deal with worthiness issues? He's like, fuck you, dude. I don't have any worthiness issues. But if you were to really get into the heart of hearts, or they were to actually take the time to reflect on it, you probably realize, like, oh yeah, like here's how I'm coping to make sure that I never even have to get even close to feeling the pain of that wound.
Once you tap into exactly what you're saying there, and I see with a lot of men, I see that the feeling of inadequacy, insecurity, scarcity. Those are some big ones that I see in all men. And once you go down the path and just develop awareness, like the first step is awareness, becoming aware that you have a blind spot. We all have blind spots. Becoming aware of where that blind spot is. Oh, I'm feeling a level of inadequacy, not feeling valued, not feeling wanted. I'm not good enough. Self doubt, a feeling of insecurity, and of course, the scarcity. Once you start to become aware of that, now you own it. Now you're responsible for that. You can't just go back and make an excuse and play victim. Like, you own it. And then once you see it and you start to try it on and you start to shift, you can start to see it in others. And it's amazing how we used to attract people who were also feeling adequate, also feeling insecure, also feeling a level of scarcity. And once you become aware, you can sniff that out and recognize, okay, this potential relationship, maybe an intimate relationship or a business partnership, is in alignment because I'm sensing the insecurity in this person. And that's going to affect me. Like, that's not where I'm at right now. And you can see it, man, in some of the biggest, quote unquote, successful men in our current time right now. You can see people, some of them who were dealing with insecurity and inadequacy.
I think a lot of our, across the board, a lot of the global leaders are probably dealing with that. And the challenge is when you have all that sort of power and you haven't done the work.
Mhm.
It's brought up a lot of fear in me. I have more faith. And so I don't get wrapped up into sort of the going off of the rails in that regard or off the deep end in terms of, how bad can it get? But there is a little bit of worry and hope that the people who step into leadership next will have done this sort of work. Because when all of a sudden you come from that sort of place, and collectively, we all come from that sort of place where we've done the work to put down, we've done our shadow work. Because I think that that's what a lot of people don't realize is the entire society is walking around with these masks, lying to themselves, right? If everybody collectively is lying to themselves, like what does that do on a really macro global level? And so, at least we as individuals can start to do the work on our own. And I think like that Michael Jackson sort of song, right? Like the man in the mirror thing. Like if I want to change the world, like let's start here. And that at least gives us a place to get going.
It's all a mirror. Disruption is a mirror. The hardness, the chaos that's going on is simply a mirror reflecting back to you where you are unhealed. All the people getting triggered online about, one side or the other and all that, the triggering is a mirror back to where they are not healed, where there is a level of pain that they aren't aware of and need to be addressed. And it's the person on the other side is triggering them, whether it be in a relationship or a political party or whatever. They're being triggered by this person because of things that are unhealed in themselves. So those triggers should be a mirror back into, okay, wow, why is this triggering me? What am I feeling in the moment? Which is most men, so almost all men don't do. Oh, I'm triggered in this moment. My wife triggered me, or this post triggered me. What am I feeling in the moment? Oh, I'm feeling angry. I'm feeling unwanted. I'm feeling disrespected, whatever. And that hurts. I'm feeling hurt. Okay. Now we got to a feeling. You're feeling hurt. Probably not the first time you felt hurt before. To your point, the shadow, where it in the back. Have you felt hurt before? Okay. We can start to put it together that when this happens, you feel the pain of hurt. So now instead of blasting back, well, forget your party. You guys are the worst. Or to an intimate partner who you love, well, you did this, da da da. You know what? I'm feeling hurt in this moment right now. A shift in a dynamic for an individual, for a couple in a relationship, for a community, for a society, we can start to tap into what are we really feeling in these moments.
Yeah, I've really drawn on breathwork has been a big thing for me. I got into meditation probably about a little over a decade ago, and that was great. And I think it was a great foundation. And breathwork was sort of another layer on top of that to help me unstick a lot of the bullshit that's going on in my head, to be able to be that observer and step outside of the programming and realize that it is some sort of programming. Are there tools or practices or habits that you fall back on or that you suggest or recommend often?
Wow. This was a life changer for me. A really good question because I just had enough pain and enough suffering and enough heartbreak and enough to say, okay, look, I need to set a standard for myself. And that standard for me now, because as a single father, as a business owner, it's so easy to start my day and just give to everyone else. Get up, get the kids going, get the lunches ready, get them out the door, get them to school. Then we've got practices and Uber driver and client meetings and marketing and recording podcasts. And I took a step back and like, I'm not in this day, me. I'm serving everyone else. And it goes back to that old simple adage of put your mask on first on the airplane before you put it on anyone else. So I decided to do that. So my mornings, I can tackle the mornings and make them about me, get myself primed and ready to go so that I can show up as the man, as the leader, as the father, as a future partner for someone that I really want to be. And so my mornings, I do five key things. And it's all based on the pillars of my whole Be the Torch program. And that's, hitting focus, which is my meditation time, my journaling time, my gratitude journal time. I do fitness. So I do some level of fitness. Some days I compete on the master's level of track and field. So I'm a competitive athlete for old people. And so I have my training days, which oftentimes can be on the weekends or in the afternoons, but I'm always doing something in the morning, whether it's doing my core, doing my hip flexors, just getting out and just doing a walk, something to get the heart pumping, get myself going. Or it may be it's my gym time. I'll go do some weights, whatever it may be. Something that is fitness related, body related. Family, I send a message to my kids. I'm dating somebody now, so I'll send a message to her. Hey, just thinking of you this morning, blah, blah, blah. Just making deposits in the bank, in that love bank, making deposits. Or a friend or a colleague, hey, hope you're doing well. So you got the promotion, just checking in. It takes 2 minutes, a quick text, a quick email, a voice message, something simple. I don't make it too robust. Then fortune, I do something to invest in me as a business owner. I feel that as business owners, it's very easy to get into competency. So I don't ever want to be competent. I want to be humble. Where can I grow? Where can I evolve? So every given day I have either I'm listening to a podcast after I drop the kids off on the way back, or I'm reading something, a couple pages in my book. And so I hit the focus, the family, the fitness, the fortune, and the foundation. The foundation is the core, the connection to a higher power. That's where I'll do my meditation stuff. So I hit those five things. It generally takes me about 60 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on where my workout is in there, sometimes a little bit longer, but I account for it. That's how I start my day. That's how I get myself pumped and ready to go. And what happens is at the end of the day, I don't have any frustration or pain that I didn't do anything for me. At the end of the day, you get the kids to bed and you're like, okay, where was I in this whole picture? It got me. I took care of me. I took care of those that are important to me. I planted those seeds. So now I have the energy to focus on the kids and be there for them because I was able to take care of myself. So it took me a while to get to that process, but now I've kind of mapped it out. In fact, if your listeners are interested, I give it away, the whole process. They just go to cletuscoffey.com/morning. You get access to my morning routine. I kind of walk you through it, for obviously free to them, but just give you an insight of how they can create a standard for themselves.
My first coaches out of college was Hal Elrod. He wrote a book called The Miracle
Oh
Morning. And
yeah.
so very, very similar concepts. And for me, it was fundamental in sort of becoming the person that I am today. And it's evolved and it's shifted and adjusted. And I think what I've realized most importantly is that I can sense the difference when I've poured into myself in the morning and when I have. It's a tangible feeling. And I feel it when you get conflicted with the things that would most often trigger you. Sometimes like that's like the whining in the morning, or my kids, they're a year apart, and so they just bicker nonstop about just whatever. They'll just find any reason to just create. I got to stop saying that, but that's what it's felt like, is that I'm constantly playing UFC referee, or it's less of that now. It's more about who's right, and they're pulling me in. Dad, he did that, and those things really get an emotional charge out. A lot of times I just tell them like I don't want to be around it. For me, it's like if I get my breath work in, I can feel my ability to handle that. I feel my ability to hold the space for them and to respond differently than if I'm just waking up and then I'm going right into the day. It's a real tangible difference.
Man, it totally is. And I also want to add in there that, have two women that I parent with. So I was married, had two children with my ex-wife, got into another relationship, had a daughter with her. We are no longer together. And so I have to be a teammate. And so my day can get really bombarded with, depending on what's going on with the kids that day or what's needed or finances or those type of things from them. And early on, man, it was a challenge because both relationships didn't end very well. And so I was angry, I was embarrassed, I was frustrated, and I came out with that energy. And guess what? I got that energy back. And then it was this even more of a challenge. And so, having to manage children, having to work collaboratively. And I know not everyone has gotten to this place with their co-parents or even get to. I've been fortunate to do the work. It's not always been unicorns and rainbows, but by all means, we've gotten to a place where we can work in the best interest of the kids. And yeah, there's just a lot of distraction, external forces that are pulling at me, at us as men. At the end of the day, we talk about what makes us happy. Say something other than, well, the kids and my work and the little 2-week vacation I had. Like, we've got to find happiness within ourselves. And it's time for men to start doing that.
I joke there's this other mom at drop off, and on Mondays we sort of walk back. I walk back to my house, she walks back to her car, and we sort of chat about, the woes of single parenthood. And I find that on frequently on I'm telling her on like this Monday that I have like a near breakdown on Sundays. There's like it's like Sunday, I've been with the kids. I have them full time, and so they're with me. And usually during the week, you have school and you have sort of after school, and so there's this break a little bit. But on the weekends, it's like I'm pretty much like you said, an Uber driver and IHOP waitress, and that's sort of the roles that I play. And it's interesting that I find like on Sunday nights, I have this moment. It's usually in the kitchen when someone's asking me for more, chocolate milk or like something, and I have this like breakdown where I just like I'm like fighting back tears, sometimes because it's just I'm just spent and exhausted. And to your point, I haven't poured into me in days at that point. It gives me a little bit of a perspective though, because I only have one co-parent, or, to sort of deal with. I can't imagine what managing and navigating all the different sort of stuff. Has there ever been moments, where you've sort of stepped outside and go like, whoa, this is crazy, or like this is a new level of challenge, or you're being pushed to your limits, if you will?
Oh man, constantly. And, I could tell you what was important was for me to keep people around me that were of a kind of a growth mindset. Because it's really easy, to your point. I took a step back, man. I looked around. I lost a lot of friends through the divorce because I moved to the city that she was living in. I adopted a lot of her friends and didn't really make my own. And so once we went through the divorce, sometimes people choose sides and or you just kind of lose touch because we don't get together as a couples anymore. And so I lost my network. And I ended up getting into another relationship, and it was a very toxic relationship that just drew me away from all of my world. And so I just was locked in this relationship of, and more of like, how can I get out of this relationship? It's just not working. So I looked up and like, I don't have any friends. And the ones I did have, I had several friends that were divorced, single father, executive, entrepreneur type. And we'd get together. And the things that we talk about was, how's the crazy ex? Or what issues are you running up to now? Or what'd she do now? And I was thinking to myself, like, we don't talk about on Sundays. Did you find yourself in tears trying to manage the kids? What are you really feeling? And so I had to distance myself from people that all they want to do is talk about the crazy ex, because I don't want to talk about crazy exes. I wanted to be not in a relationship with a crazy ex, and not to label anybody, but it's just, I wanted to be in a collaborative, loving co-parenting environment. And I had to stop thinking along those lines, stop bringing that type of energy into my world. So that was one thing I did. And then the other thing was being honest with my kids as they got a little bit older. And I now have, my 19, 16, and 9, to be honest with them. Hey guys, here's the deal. We've been doing this all week. And if you've pushed back on all your chores, you've been very demanding. I'm running into multiple different places. Guys, I am tapped and I'm feeling myself about to explode. And I do not want to explode on you guys, but I'm feeling tapped. And I need you guys to recognize I need your help. I'm doing this all on my own. It's very easy to just get mad and get angry and yell at them. But I didn't want that experience in my home. And so I had to start to be open and honest and vulnerable with them as to where I was at in those moments and at the level that they could understand, if they were younger, older. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, well, it just self-regulation is just, thankfully I have the tools that I've sort of developed over the years. And it's funny because my kids just know, like, I'm curious what their real thoughts are when I'm breathing. Cause I'll have a weird thought come in. And so I'll just go into a breath routine just to just clear that thought. It's little stuff and big stuff, but they sort of recognize that, like, oh, dad's, and I tell them, like, I need to center myself. Like, I'm going to the garage. Like, I need to get centered. And hopefully, I think if nothing else, through that work, they'll be able to see that, like, they can do that, that they are, in control of their state and are not sort of beholden to these things. And of course, there are moments where I slip up and moments where much less exploding, and the explosion is much more tempered. And I think that the challenge is that you can't draw on that tool if you don't have it, right? Like you said, you've got to put that deposit in well ahead of time so that when you need it, you're able to draw upon it. It's not something that you realize, oh, I need emotional regulation. That's actually like, the heart. You're not going to be able to develop it in that moment for sure.
I got to tell you, you're right. And we're human. We have our moments. And in those moments, I think it's really important to repair. And I asked my 16-year-old, I go, have you ever heard me like yell? He goes, no. And my 19-year-old reminds me of a moment where I did. And I actually almost regretted it big time because he's a 300-pound offensive lineman. He's playing college football right now. And he did something where they were horsing around, throwing the ball in the house. I asked them to stop a couple times. They didn't do it. Of course, I knew it was going to happen. And what I knew was going to happen manifested. The ball hit me in the face. And it was one of those weeks where I think they were with me for a couple weeks at a time. And the little ones were bickering and I just were at my wit's end, hit me in the face. And I just popped. The challenge was I popped, but my son is now 300 pounds. And I kind of got nose to nose with him. And I kind of regretted it because I'm thinking he honestly could manhandle me right now. If it came down to it, I'd be in trouble. Thankfully, he didn't. But the important was to go back and repair and say, hey, look, that's on me. This is what happened. This is what I was going through. This is what I was feeling. I probably should have communicated that. I didn't. I exploded. And I apologize and I repair. And what that does is, man, that invites, when I show up vulnerably, it invites them, it invites partnership, it invites others, invites them to do the same. And I think we can do so much more of that, apologizing, repairing, especially, man, in the corporate world, leading with that. Man, that was on me. I apologize because it invites others to show up at that same level of vulnerability, truthfulness, connection. That's where partnerships become unstoppable.
My ex had a challenge with, and I think a lot of people do, with saying sorry, right? Or like, with owning up and taking responsibility. It was just like, there was never an apology. It was just like, let's forget it and move on. And so, and if that's sort of what they're getting, and they're not with her as much as they're with me, but if that's sort of the other side of that's what's going to be on the other side of the spectrum, or that they're going to be exposed to that. I made it a point to, like, apologize and repair, almost to a, not to a fault, but to make it a point to do those things. And also, I think that when it comes to, being a dad or even just a parent, one of the slight adjustments that I've sort of made is that even in my anger, there's never a judgment on them as a kid. Like, if they screwed up about, like, the other day we had a big chocolate milk spill. I sort of probably lost my cool more than I would have been ideal, or if I look back on it, more than it would have been perfect. And also, I know that I've worked hard so that my son knows that I'm upset that the chocolate is spilled. It's not a damning of him, because I was really worried, because I've seen it in other people. After they do that, they cut off affection, or like, don't be around me, or like, I don't want to, you know, now all of a sudden the kid is scared of the adult or scared of the parent. Where, I've had a blow up, and like 2 minutes later, they come up and give me a hug, and they're like, we're cuddling again. And I think that it's part of the fact that, like, it's not a damnation on them. And I've seen it. I've even seen parents today do it a lot where they go, "Oh, you're being so, or you're so whatever. You're so," and back in the old days, they used to call us stupid, or "You're so dumb," or "You're so whatever." And it's like that's giving identity to the kid. And that's something that I try and never do unless I'm sort of, affirming them and building them up. But like I don't want them to create an identity based off of a mistake they just had.
Absolutely. Look, it's our job as parents to provide correction. That's our job. There's a difference between correction and criticism. Criticism is attacking their character. And what that's doing is, to your point, is it is confirming something that is just not true. That they are an idiot, they're dumb, they're stupid, they're bad, they're not a good listener, or all those things. It's criticizing them. And what that does is eventually it's teaching them to be on the defensive. And now we're raising individuals that get into relationships who are constantly on the defense. And no wonder why their relationships aren't healthy, because they're constantly playing the defense, or playing the victim. And so, yes, truly believe that correction is part of our responsibility. And we can provide correction in a positive way that still has consequences based on age and the severity of the instances, whatever it may be. Because real life has consequences. So they need to learn those things. We can provide that correction in a way that elevates them, that lifts them up, and that changes behavior and ultimately performance, if you will, without having to criticize them as their character as a human being.
I'm curious about is in your work, what's been most surprising, or what's surprised you the most as you've sort of gone on this journey helping men through some of these challenges?
I feel like I get surprised every day, and what is surprising is how many men are really hurting and just aren't talking about it. It's surprising how many men are alone trying to go at this on their own. And by alone, I mean don't have a brotherhood of other men to talk to. It's surprising how many men don't have friends and someone they can call. Right? I just had a horrible blow up with as an example, with my partner, and I need to talk to somebody. Like, don't have anyone on speed dial to contact. It really surprises me because I've just always been an avid learner. The learners will inherit the earth, or the unlearned will be beautifully equipped for a world that no longer exists. And I'm completely spacing on the guy that made that quote, but anyone can look it up. I've always been someone to be of learning and growing. And it's surprising. And all the work that I do is just how many women are out there. They're learning, they're growing, they're investing in themselves, and seeing men that would much rather invest in their marketing than in their own personal growth. Seeing how many men are going to invest in a new car than in how to develop their communication skills, how to be a better leader, a better father, better man. And the cool thing is, being in this space, is that it's ripe, because there's a lot of coaching programs and things that are out there that are, developed by women, and have often a lot of feminine undertone to it, which is great, no problem to it. A lot of men just aren't aligning with that, nor are they aligning with the alpha military. We're going to shove your face in the sand to improve you. That may work for some people. That's great. I find somewhere in between, and saying, hey, look, I'm real. I'm a dad. I'm a man. I don't have much of anything figured out, but the stuff that I do understand, and the experience that I've had, I want to be of service to other men in that capacity. And so that's where I launched my program. It's called Be the Torch. And it just stems from my darkness and wishing that someone could bring the light to me, and realizing that no one was going to come save me. I got to light my own torch, figure my way out of this cave that I'm in, this dark cave that I can't see. And then by doing so, I can't keep it to myself. I want to then pass this torch on to others and be the light as an example of possibility, that this can be possible. That's kind of how it all got started. We've got groups, we can create that community, a brotherhood, no more lone wolfing it. Let's get guys together, have these conversations, see the guys that are a couple steps ahead, and then help the guys that are a couple steps behind, so that we can all learn and grow from one another from a place of openness, connection, vulnerability. So that's the Be the Torch program, and I'm grateful.
Two more questions. The first is if people want to find out about that or get more connected with you, where's the best place to go?
Yeah, the best place to go, and let's have a conversation. If you just go to cletuscoffey.com/book a call, and coffee is COFFEY, cletuscoffey.com/ book a call. Just let's just jump on a call. Let's just kind of see what you're working on, where I can best support you. I'm at Cletus Coffey on all social channels. You can find me there as well and shoot me a message.
Amazing. And last question for you, Cletus. In your opinion, what is the definition of modern masculinity?
Freedom, vulnerability, honesty, truthfully. That is us in a nutshell.